Avoid these 5 mistakes that are silently damaging your relationship with your adult child. They were once the little ones who needed you for everything. You held their hands through scraped knees, whispered encouragement before big moments. Stayed awake during sleepless nights just to make sure they were okay. You watched them grow, make mistakes, find themselves, and slowly, sometimes painfully, step into their own lives. Now they're adults. They have homes, jobs, opinions, maybe even children of their own. But somewhere along the way, the connection started to shift. You still love them with every bit of your heart. That hasn't changed. But you might feel like you're walking on eggshells during conversations now. The calls are less frequent. The visits don't feel as warm. They seem guarded or distant. Maybe you're wondering, did I do something wrong? Or worse, do they not need me anymore? Let's pause right there. 'Cause what you're feeling, it's more common than you think. So many parents, especially those with grown children, carry this quiet ache, the feeling that something precious is slipping away, even when they're doing their best. It's not that you've failed, it's that relationships evolve. And sometimes we don't realize how much until we feel the tension or silence in the room. The truth is, communication with adult children isn't the same as it was when they were 10 or 16 or even 21. The roles change. The rules change. And when those changes aren't acknowledged, misunderstandings take root. Small moments, a comment here, a reaction there, start to feel heavy. What you meant as love, they might hear as judgment. What you offered as guidance, they may take as interference. And before long, both sides are carrying assumptions instead of sharing words. But here's the good news. It's never too late to rebuild that bridge. It starts with awareness, seeing the blind spots we didn't know we had. No one teaches us how to parent adult children. There's no rule book for this chapter, but with a little humility, a little curiosity, and a whole lot of heart, we can unlearn old habits and make space for something more meaningful. This isn't about blaming yourself. This is about opening your eyes and your heart to what your relationship could become. Because deep down, you and your child still want the same thing: to feel seen, heard, respected, and loved. Let's talk about how we get there. Let's talk about the 5 most common mistakes parents make when communicating with their adult children and how to avoid them. Mistake 1. Talking to them, not with them. You've spent years being the voice of reason, the one who made decisions, offered advice, set rules, and kept everything moving forward. That's what parents do. You led with love, discipline, and experience, and they looked up to you for it. But here's the challenge. What worked when they were children doesn't quite work now that they're adults. They've changed, and more importantly, they want to be treated like they've changed. The shift happens slowly. One day they're asking for your help with homework, and the next, they're making their own choices about relationships, finances, careers, and values. And while you may still see the kid who used to sit across the dinner table, what they need from you now is different. They don't want to be talked to anymore. They want to be talked with. The distinction is subtle, but powerful. Talking to someone implies a hierarchy. It's directional. It's instructional. It often feels like a monologue, not a dialogue. It's the kind of communication that says, "Let me tell you how it should be," rather than, "Let's figure this out together." And for adult children, even the best intentions can feel like condescension when they're wrapped in that tone. You might not even realize it's happening. Maybe you offer a few quick opinions on how they're raising their kids. Maybe you tell them they should switch jobs, move cities, save more money. Maybe you think you're helping, and genuinely, you are trying to. But what they hear might be, "You don't trust me. You don't respect me. You don't see me as capable." That stings. And it doesn't matter if you meant it that way or not. Communication isn't just about intent, it's about how your words land. And when adult children feel like they're being spoken at instead of spoken with, they pull away, not because they don't love you, but because they need space to be themselves fully and freely. So how do you change it? It starts with listening. Real listening. Not the kind where you're already thinking about what you'll say next. The kind where you lean in, ask questions, and let silence have its place. It's about replacing the urge to correct with the choice to understand. Instead of "you should have done it this way, try." That sounds tough. How are you feeling about it? Instead of "let me tell you what you need to do," try, "do you want to hear what helped me in a similar situation?" This doesn't mean you stop being a parent. It means you start being a partner in conversation. You meet them at their level. You acknowledge their adulthood, not just legally, but emotionally. And that shift, as small as it seems, changes everything. One father once said, "When I stopped trying to fix my son's life and started asking about it, we became friends again." That's the power of talking with. So if you've been feeling that distance, that coolness, that uncomfortable pause after a phone call, this might be a place to look. Let go of the lecture. Embrace the dialogue. Your child doesn't need you to have all the answers anymore. They just need you to be curious, present, and willing to talk like equals. It's not easy to undo a lifetime of habits. But your willingness to try, that's what creates space for connection to grow again. And that's where the healing begins. Mistake 3. Giving unsolicited advice. You've seen more. You've lived longer. You've made your share of mistakes, and you've learned lessons the hard way. So when your adult child brings up a problem or even just shares a plan, you might feel an almost automatic urge rise up inside you. I know what they should do. It's natural. You're not trying to control them. You're trying to protect them. Maybe you want to help them avoid pain, steer clear of regret, or save them time. You've walked through storms and found your way out, and all you want is to hand them an umbrella before the rain even starts. That's love. But here's the hard truth. When advice isn't asked for, it rarely feels like love. It often feels like judgment. Think about it. You share something you're struggling with. Maybe you're overwhelmed at work, or navigating a tricky relationship, and before you can even finish explaining, someone jumps in with a solution. You didn't ask for one. You just wanted to be heard. Now instead of feeling supported, you feel dismissed. Like your experience wasn't valid until it was fixed. That's how it feels to your adult children, when every conversation turns into a problem-solving session. Even when your tone is gentle. Even when your advice is good. Especially when they didn't ask for it. It's easy to forget that the parent-child dynamic has shifted. When they were young, they needed you to guide their every step. But now, unsolicited advice can send the message, "I don't think you can handle this on your own." And no matter how loving your intentions are, that's a hard message to swallow. Sometimes they just want to talk. They want to vent. They want to feel understood. And when you skip past that to offer advice, it can feel like you're prioritizing the problem over the person. A father once said, "Every time my son told me about an issue at work, I'd jump in with, 'Well, you should do this.' One day he said, 'Dad, I don't need you to fix everything. I just need to talk.' That moment changed everything for them. So what can you do instead? Ask. It's that simple. Ask before you offer. Say things like, 'Do you want my thoughts on that? Would it help to hear what I might do in that situation? Do you just need to vent, or are you looking for some advice?' Those questions do two things. They show respect for your child's autonomy, and they open the door for deeper connection. When your adult child invites your input, they're far more likely to hear it, consider it, and even appreciate it. Because now it's a choice, not a lecture. And if they say no, That's okay too. You've still supported them, just by listening, by being present, by showing them that their voice matters. It takes discipline to hold back. It takes humility to listen instead of lead. But in that space, trust begins to grow. Conversations start to feel safer, and your child starts to come to you because they want to, not because they feel like they have to brace for a correction. Unsolicited advice often comes from a deep desire to stay connected. Ironically, it's also one of the fastest ways to create distance. But when you replace advice with curiosity, urgency with patience, and direction with support, you open the door to a new kind of closeness. One that's based on mutual respect. And isn't that what you truly want? Not just to be heard, but to be welcomed into their world. Not as the fixer, but as the person they trust to walk beside them, even when there's nothing to fix. That's the power of listening. That's the gift of waiting to be asked. And that's what strengthens the bond. Not just between parent and child, but between two adults who are still learning how to grow together. Mistake 4. Not respecting their boundaries. There's a quiet shift that happens when children grow up. One that isn't always easy to see, and even harder to accept. As a parent, you were once the center of their world. You knew everything about their lives. You made most of their decision. You were their safe place, their guardian. But adulthood changes the landscape. They build their own lives, shape their own identities, and begin setting boundaries, sometimes for the first time. And if you're not paying attention, those boundaries can feel like rejection. But they're not. They're actually a healthy sign of growth. Still, here's where the mistake creeps in. Sometimes, without realizing it, you cross those boundaries. Maybe you text too often and expect an immediate reply. Maybe you show up unannounced, assuming your presence is always welcome. Maybe you press for personal details they're not ready to share. Or maybe you bring up sensitive topics that make them uncomfortable because you feel the need to address them. And suddenly, what feels to you like love, interest, or involvement feels to them like intrusion. Here's the truth many parents struggle to sit with. Your child doesn't owe you access to every part of their life. Not anymore. You had that access when they were young. You earned it through care, consistency, and love. But now, as adults, they get to choose how much of themselves they share. They get to choose when and how they engage. And those choices are not a reflection of how much they love you. They're a reflection of the space they need in order to feel safe and independent. Respecting boundaries doesn't mean you're being pushed away. It means you're giving the relationship room to breathe. Because closeness doesn't come from constant access. It comes from mutual respect. Think of it this way. Imagine a friend who calls you every single day, expects you to drop everything, and gets upset if you don't share every detail of your life. Eventually, that relationship would feel exhausting. It wouldn't feel like love, it would feel like pressure. That's how your adult children can feel when you ignore the quiet signals they're sending about what they're ready for, what they're comfortable with, or how they need space. One woman shared, "My mom would text me 5 times a day. If I didn't respond right away, she'd send a sad face emoji, or call me and ask if something was wrong. I love her, but it started to feel like a burden, like I had to manage her emotions every day. That pressure can slowly erode even the strongest bonds." Boundaries aren't walls, they're guideposts. They help both people in the relationship feel safe, respected, and seen. And the beautiful part is, when you honor your child's boundaries, they begin to trust you more. They feel safer opening up. They feel more in control of the relationship. And paradoxically, that control allows them to let you in. So what does it look like to respect boundaries? It looks like asking before visiting, even if you're family. It looks like giving space when they say they're busy. It looks like trusting them to share what they want when they're ready. It looks like resisting the urge to dig, push, or hover. And most importantly, It looks like managing your own emotions when their needs don't match your expectations. It's okay to miss them. It's okay to wish they'd call more. It's okay to long for deeper closeness. Those feelings are valid, but guilt-tripping them, getting angry, or making them responsible for your happiness, that crosses the line. Healthy relationships require two whole people, each with their own boundaries, needs, and autonomy. And when you model respect for those boundaries, you teach your child that your love isn't conditional. You're not here to control them. You're here to walk with them, with open hands and an open heart. In time, they'll come to you more, not out of obligation, but out of desire. And that kind of connection, that's the one that lasts, because it's built not on constant contact, but on mutual respect and the freedom to be fully themselves. Mistake 5, expecting them to fulfill your emotional needs. This one is tender, and it's rarely talked about out loud. As your children grow up, move out, and begin building lives of their own, the house gets quieter. Routines shift. The days once filled with noise, chaos, laughter, and small moments now stretch out in long, still hours. It's normal to feel a sense of loss, a subtle grief. You devoted so much of yourself to being there for them. And now, even though you're proud of their independence, something in you aches. You miss the connection. You miss being needed. And sometimes, without realizing it, that ache turns into expectation. You begin to look to your adult children to fill emotional gaps they were never meant to fill. It can show up in subtle ways. You feel hurt if they don't call often enough. You take it personally when they set boundaries or don't invite you to certain things. You might share your loneliness with them, hoping they'll respond by being more available. Or maybe you rely on them to be your main source of comfort when you're struggling, talking about your worries, your sadness, your regrets, thinking that's what closeness looks like. But here's the truth. As much as they love you, your adult children are not responsible for your emotional well-being. That's a burden they can't carry. And expecting them to, no matter how gently or unconsciously, can create pressure, guilt, and distance. A daughter once shared, "I used to dread calling my dad because every time we talked he'd say how lonely he was, or how no one visits anymore. It made me feel guilty, like I could never do enough. Eventually I called less, just to protect my own peace." This is where relationships start to quietly fracture. Not because there's a lack of love, but because the emotional dynamic becomes unbalanced. And when children feel responsible for their parents' happiness, they begin to pull away. Not out of selfishness, but out of self-preservation. Let's be clear. It's okay to feel lonely. It's okay to miss your child. It's okay to want more connection. But there's a difference between expressing those feelings and placing them at your child's feet to fix. They can't be your therapist. They can't be your emotional anchor. They can't fill the spaces that were once occupied by a busy household, a full calendar, or your own personal dream. What they can be is your adult child. Someone who loves you, wants to share life with you, and respects you deeply. But for that relationship to flourish, it has to breathe. It has to be free of obligation and emotional weight they're not equipped to carry. So where do you turn when you feel the need for deeper emotional connection? Start by building your own support system. Reconnect with old friends. Join communities that reflect your interests. Talk to a counselor or therapist if the loneliness feels heavy. Rediscover parts of yourself that may have been put on pause while you were raising your family. It's never too late to build a life that fulfills you. And when you do, something powerful happens. You show your adult children that love isn't about emotional dependence. It's about mutual respect, trust, and support. And here's the beautiful part. When your emotional needs aren't wrapped around them, your children will actually feel safer being close to you. They'll want to call more, visit more, share more, not out of guilt, but out of genuine connection. Because nothing draws people in like someone who is whole, grounded, and emotionally free. So if you've been feeling that emptiness, If you've been hoping your child will fill a space inside you that feels heavy, take a breath. Be gentle with yourself. But also be honest. That need is valid. But they're not the solution. And the moment you begin to carry your own heart again without handing it to them to hold, you make space for a relationship built not on need, but on love. That's the relationship you both deserve. One rooted in choice, one grounded in freedom. One that grows, not because it has to, but because it wants to. Conclusion. Rebuilding the conversation, one word at a time. There's something quietly sacred about the bond between a parent and a child. It begins with total dependence, then slowly shifts to guidance, then if nurtured with care, grows into something even more profound, mutual respect. But that transformation doesn't happen on its own. It requires awareness, humility, and a willingness to let go of what was in order to make room for what could be. Maybe as you've listened today, you've recognized a few patterns. Maybe you've noticed yourself interrupting, advising, reminiscing, or holding on a bit too tightly. And maybe in those moments, you felt a small twinge of guilt, or even sadness. If so, that's okay. This isn't about blame. This is about growth. You raised your child the best way you knew how. You loved them through their worst days. You celebrated their victories, stayed up through their storms, and gave more of yourself than they may ever fully understand. That matters. That always matters. But now your role is changing. Your adult child doesn't need a manager. They need a mirror, someone who reflects back their value, their growth, their autonomy. They don't need a rescuer. They need a relationship, one where they're seen for who they are today, not just remembered for who they used to be. One where love doesn't come with pressure or instruction, but presence. These 5 mistakes aren't flaws in your character. They're habits, deeply human, deeply common. And just like any habit, they can be unlearned. You can begin today. Start small. Choose listening over lecturing. Ask instead of advising. Release the need to be needed, and replace it with the joy of simply being there. Respect the space they need. And most importantly, take care of your own emotional well-being, so your relationship can be built on freedom, not dependence. You're not too late. It's not too far gone. No matter how strained the connection might feel, there's still time to shift the energy, to soften the edges, to invite closeness back into the room. Because what adult children want most, what we all want really, is to be seen, heard, and accepted as we are. And when you offer that, not only will your child feel safer with you, they'll start choosing you again, calling more, opening up more, letting you in, not because they should, but because it feels good. That's what you're building now. A relationship grounded not in authority, but in authenticity. Not in hierarchy, but in harmony. It won't be perfect, but it can be beautiful. One word at a time, one moment at a time, one intentional, loving conversation at a time. And in the end, that's what wisdom is. Not just knowing the right thing to say, but knowing when to listen, when to let go, and when to simply show up with love. You've been doing that your whole life. Now it's just time to do it a little differently. And that change, that's the beginning of something truly lasting.